Then we will go ahead and officially get started. So once again, my name is Pam O'Brien. I currently live in Richmond, Virginia. So it was nice to see so many different states and school districts and divisions in our country represented here today. We're going to start today by talking a little bit about what our mission is. So for today, we want to engage in science talk with our peers. We hope that you find this an engaging and interactive session as well as an informative one. And then we want to give you the opportunity to reflect on the goals that you have for promoting student voice in your classroom or learning environment. And so I want to start today by focusing on those last two words of our mission, which is student voice. So in order to promote student voice, we must understand what it looks like. This graphic, spectrum of voice, shows the progression from a more teacher-led to a more learner-led environment. So if we look on the left, we can see where the learners in our classroom, the different activities that they would be doing, and something that we would consider something a little bit more traditional or teacher-led. And where each of these activities really has value, we can see as we kind of ascend up through the blocks, how students take more and more ownership in each of these different activities to the point where they are the leaders of their own learning. They are guiding at the processes and activities within groups, and they are also being held accountable for and ultimately responsible for the outcomes of their learning. So what we would like to do to start is we would like to have you kind of take a look at this screen for just a moment and think about where the majority of your activities in your classroom or whatever learning environment you find yourself in, where do you think those activities would fall on this spectrum? Now, I have looked at this graphic quite a bit, and I would have to say that at times it might be in one place, and for another lesson or activity, it might be another place. So just kind of want you to think about where you may, where the majority of your activities may fall. And it's anonymous, so no worries. So we're going to be asking you to go to a Jamboard that we have created. This is our new find. So I know some of you may be very familiar with it, but me and I know especially Kristen have kind of fallen in love with Jamboards. So we're going to actually have you go to this Jamboard and take a little tile that are represented by these white squares here. And if you could just take one of those tiles and move it to the place where you think you kind of find the majority of your activities, where those fall right now.
Okay, Pam is updating that right now, you guys. So you should have permissions in just a minute. Try refreshing and going back in. Thank you for letting us know.
There we go. See lots of responses now. Give you just a few more minutes, or really a few more seconds. Seconds feel like minutes in virtual time, and minutes feel like hours. Really have to be patient with the wait time in a virtual environment, I have found. About 10 more seconds. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for your responses. And as we can see, as people are continuing to fill this out with their responses, that we have quite a variety. We really have something at every level. Um, and so just kind of keeping that in mind, and we're going to return back to this at the end of our presentation. And we're going to ask you if you can kind of think about had you learned something today that perhaps maybe allowed you to think about some activities that maybe moved some of your activities up to more of a learner-led? But once again, we have lots and lots of different responses here. Thank you so much. And why is this important? Well, in the words of the original researchers that this infographic was based on, without motivation, there's no push to learn. Without engagement, there's no way to learn. And without student voice, there's no authenticity in the learning. So with that in mind, we want to go ahead and officially begin. So how can we promote that student voice? Well, today we would like to present a path toward that goal. I don't know about you and what kind of hobbies or activities you like to do in your free time, but I am an avid hiker. I was raised in Colorado and hiked all through the Colorado Rockies and now find my home in Virginia. And so I love going up into Shenandoah National Park and walking the mountains up there. So this graphic encapsulating this path and created by my partner, Kristen Buckman, it really spoke to me. And so like any adventure, we need a starting point. And so we're going to begin right at the very beginning down here at the bottom of the mountain. So step one is creating an inclusive environment. And notice that it's not only the first step on our path, but it also forms a foundation for the other steps. So today, if our goal is student talk, how can we create an inclusive, equitable space so that can happen? What are some norms that we can put in place in our own classroom to establish that all students are given an equal voice? And so we'd like you to share some of your ideas, returning to that Jamboard. If you have not logged out of it, that's great because we're going to continue to come back here quite a few times during the presentation. You'll want to go to the next board. So what does it look like if you're trying to support equitable talk in your classroom? So once again, you have sticky notes here if you want to take those, and off to the side you have writing tools, or you can make a text box and write your thoughts there. I see we've got lots of different responses coming in. Thank you for those of you who have shared. We have talking and participation norms. Mistakes are okay. That's how we learn. Relevant activities, all voices heard. Resources to one another. Scaffolds, real conversations. Collaboration. Excellent. Lots of great ideas. Sentence stems, avid collaborative strategies, talking sticks, perspective, identifying multiple perspectives, respectful, Many perspectives are shared, lots and lots of great ideas that you have up here. You can keep adding to those as we continue. So with those great ideas, we wanted to share ways that we want to have an inclusive environment for our session today. So these are the norms that we would like to present to you. The first one is that we would like to have you share your ideas. And thank you so much for those of you who have already done that. There are multiple ways to share ideas, and you have done that by participating in our Jamboards at this point. Second, we'd like you to listen to ideas. It's always, I find that even if I don't necessarily agree with someone, I'm always learn by listening to others. Which brings us to that third norm, which we find really important, which is how we respectfully respond to others. So there are those ways that we can respond to others in a positive, or maybe in a way that kind of challenges what's being said to us, but we want to make sure that we're doing that in a respectful way. And so one way that we can help our students with that is providing them with sentence stems specifically about how they would respond to something that they have heard. In this case, we have some that deal with something that you would respond to that you were in agreement with, or perhaps something that you disagreed with. So these are resources. These sentence stems are among a collection of resources that we will be sharing at the end of the session.
Right. Thank you, Pam, for getting us started. And I'm going to take us along the journey into our next step. So I'm Kristen, and I'm also presenting with Pam today. So we talked a little bit about building that foundation through inclusive environment and some of the strategies and the amazing things that you guys are still adding to the Jamboard right now, by the way. I see some pictures are being added, and I love that. But we also kind of felt that in order to continue on this mission, there was just one more really strong foundational thing that students need to have access to. And we know that students come to us with a whole range of experiences from home. We know that no two homes are alike. The students are going to take whatever experiences they're having, they're going to bring it to the classroom, but we can't always predict what that is going to be when we're trying to create an equitable situation in that inclusive environment. So that really brings us to number 2, which is all about the shared experience. So that's going to be the second part of our journey. And I want you guys to take just a moment. We don't need to jot it down. I just want you to think in your heads for a second. Why did Pam and I feel like a shared experience would be a foundational part of this process? So just take a moment and just kind of think about why we felt that was so important for this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give you a shared experience. So our shared experience today is, if you haven't heard of phenomena or phenomenon, it's kind of like the big thing with the NGSS world. So we are going to talk about what we call a phenomenon. And we're going to engage you with engaging with phenomena. So we've pulled a phenomenon today from nasa.gov. And what we're going to have you do is just a very quick 23-minute or 23-second animation, not minutes, 23 seconds. And what we're going to have you do is observe the video. And if you have a pen and paper close by, amazing, you can jot down some ideas. If you don't, you can type them on your computer, keep them in your head, whatever works for you. But we are going to ask you just to view the animation, record some observations, just take a look at what you're seeing, what's happening within this animation. Qualitative, quantitative observations, we highly encourage both if you want to. So Pam's going to launch our video for us, and I hope you're as intrigued as we were. So here we go. All right. Does anybody need to see that maybe one more time? There is no sound, Carla. That's really good. One more time. Would it be helpful if we blow it up to maybe be the whole screen? Are you able to do that, Pam, on the bottom? When you click on it.
Yeah, that would help out a lot, guys.
Okay, so go ahead and if you click on the animation at the bottom, there should be the whole screen button. Yeah, down there somewhere. So click on the animation and then it'll pop up.
So if you don't want me to click this again.
Yeah, if you click that and then we can go down, we can replay it.
Okay,
Let's see.
there we go.
Okay, there you go. That'll help. Okay, so let's replay that. So what we're looking at is we're looking at chemicals. So we're looking at the chemical levels, you know, in a nutshell, some levels that were measured around, looks like the East Coast. And one more time, and if you take a look at some of the dates that are occurring, we'll take a look at the screen and how those chemicals in the air, the pollution, is being affected. All right. Are we good? Do you guys need to say it one more time? Did you capture that? All right, we will also provide a link for this for this animation as well. So when we will have you guys working with this in a little bit further into the session. So we will provide you with another link that you can pop onto your computer and get a deeper dive. All right, so really the purpose for that was just to provide you all with a phenomenon that we can all experience at the same time. So that we have, you know, and we'll just kind of talk about why that feels important for us to do as a teacher. So what we're going to ask you guys to do is, this will be our final time in the Jamboard. So if you go or head back into that Jamboard that you've already been in, and you slide the cursor over to page number 3, we have these 2 questions up here. So 2 things that we want you to respond to. Why do you feel a shared experience could be meaningful for students? So why is this something that we want kids to be able to do together? And then on the flip side, we also want you guys to think about or share with us what types of experiences, shared experiences, do you use in your classroom? We felt this would be a great platform to get ideas for everybody. So, and hopefully you're all able to find that sticky note. It looks like the little pad of paper in there. All right, so let's take about 2 to 3 minutes. We'll just kind of gauge the Jamboard and see how things are going, but we also want to get as many ideas up here as we can because you guys are amazing collaborators and participators, so we thank you for that. It's incredible.
Whoever posted the picture of equality versus equity, I really like that one. And the next step I always think about is, what about the material that the fence is made out of? Wouldn't that be a nice next step?
Yeah, I really love the why should I care? So what, right? That one question is, so what? Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? What can I do with this information? Right. And if we've never experienced something, we're not going to be able to contribute to the talk. We're not going to have the confidence to be able to keep up with our peers. Relevancy is highly important here. And then I love the ideas that you guys are pulling together on the right-hand side. Different ways that we can use the virtual gallery walks, pictures or short clips, evaluating evidence, open discussions. So these are awesome ideas of how we can provide more shared experiences for our kids. Your family, your culture, that relevance becomes very important. Hanging hashtags, absolutely. Chants and cheers, labs and sims, demos. Yes, and we do want students to share their own background, absolutely. And it's kind of cool because when we do provide a shared experience, students have the opportunity to share what they know and we get different perspectives. So what we may be thinking can change in a really positive way. Helps to build background knowledge, helps to build confidence in some of our students too, who may have more background knowledge in some of these topics. Starting with the same step, regardless of gender. Yeah, one of the most important things is to start building, that idea of equitable learning in our classrooms, and having a shared experience does lend itself to allowing the kids to be able to respond to something in a more equal fashion.
So Kristen, we have someone in the chat asking about what hanging hashtags are.
All right, we're gonna put someone on the spot.
So whoever put that in, can you share with us?
Yeah, that was me. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, totally.
Okay. Hanging hashtags is actually from a site called Elevations that my school uses. It's actually geared towards English language learners, but we use it with like our whole classes. You essentially like show a picture or like a short video to introduce the topic, and you have the students just look at it and develop their own, like, how would you hashtag this if you were going to put it on your social media? And then it kind of gets their brain working and thinking of, well, this is what I think that we're about to learn about. This is maybe where this whole unit is headed, stuff like that. They really like it. So
Perfect. Thanks for sharing.
That's amazing. It sounds like it's relevant not only for maybe the topic you're talking about, but also for what they like to do with technology. Very cool. Well, thank you guys. This is amazing. And if you keep thinking of ideas along the way and you're like, oh, I want to add that, we highly recommend you go back to the Jamboard. This is a shared Jamboard. So if you want to keep this, it'll be saved to your Google account. And you can always come back and take a look at what other people have posted if you need some more ideas or some more reasons as to why you feel like that shared experience would be necessary. But for the sake of time, we are going to flip back over to the presentation and keep plugging forward. And please put any questions in the chat box if you have them. Thank you. So that just brings us to this piece here, and you guys have hit all of it. And that's kind of what Pam and I were hoping you would do, because we like to get your voice involved here too, not just ours. So you hit, we just pulled together 6 major reasons why a shared experience is so valuable for your students. So our 6 major reasons that we pulled together was, 1, that shared experience can really focus your student thinking. So if you do have to cover standards or a certain topic, you can really make sure that we're honing in on that big idea that we need them to be able to discuss and understand. It provides a platform for discussion. Not all of our students have the same background information. So we want to make sure that we give them that equitable, that starting point where everyone, comes in with something equal or equitable for them. It supports risk taking. So if we want students to really put themselves out there and do something big for them, we want to make sure they have the experience to feel confident to do that. It levels the playing field. It just makes sure we're all having the ability to talk about something in our own way. Student perspectives become resources for others. I've seen that several times up here, and that's amazing. And then establishes relevancy and purpose. Yes, I've seen that on your Jamboard as well. So the relevancy, when we talk about doing something like a shared experience, there's 2 ways we can go. We can go with something that is engaging. And engagement, it can be fun. Engagement can be that wow factor, like, whoa, that was so cool. We are so engaged in what we're doing in this experience. And that's awesome. But that's the wow factor. When we want to get into some deep, meaningful talk, I would always put relevancy above engagement if I can. And if you can make the relevant piece engaging, then you're just going to be, you're doubling up. But when you're thinking about, what to choose, relevancy, sometimes because kids can perform, actually have a deeper connection to something that's relevant more than they can to something that's just engaging. So kind of keep that as a rule of thumb. All right. So thank you guys for your amazing participation. That was just incredible. So I'm going to now hand over our mission, the journey that we've put you on. We're going to hand that over to Pam, and she's going to take it from there. So thank you.
Okay, so we're continuing on this path. We're continuing on our journey of promoting student voice. And now we have gotten to this place where when we have built that foundation of an inclusive environment and our students have had a shared experience, how can we have their voice be encouraged and promoted? And so with that, we thought that there really were three pieces to that. And the reason that we put it in a cycle versus into something that was more linear is that we didn't really see that it was one after the other, that they really all went together, and you couldn't really separate them. You had the purpose as well as the protocol, as well as having that piece of that visible thinking. How are we going to have the students show what they are thinking and what they are learning? And so for today, we are going to we chose a specific purpose that today for promoting voice. We have a specific protocol that we're going to follow. And we have a way that we're going to have your thinking be visible. But what we wanted to do first is just to show you this generally, knowing that these are really up to you and whatever works best for your classroom or your learning environment. This isn't necessarily the only way to go about walking through this process. So for today, our purpose, we're going to generate student ideas by asking questions. And so that's what you are going to be doing today. You are going to be generating ideas by asking questions. The protocol we'll be using is the question formulation technique, or QFT. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. And then we are going to have your thinking be visible by observing discussions and looking at those questions that you have generated. So kind of thinking about what the QFT is for those of you who are not familiar with it. QFT is short for question formulation technique. It was developed by the Right Question Institute, an educational nonprofit based in Massachusetts. In June 2016, I had the opportunity to hear one of the co-creators of this, Dan Rothstein, present this idea and then also participate in a workshop of his. And from the first time I experienced it, I just kind of marveled at its simplicity and yet its ability to allow students a more prominent voice in their learning. So we have already introduced you to the question focus. That was the phenomena that Kristen shared with you earlier. The question focus can take on different forms. It can be a word, it can be a phrase, it can be a picture, it can be a video. It can also encompass different disciplines. This is not necessarily something that would necessarily be used in the science classroom, but since we are talking about science, that's the context that we are going to use it in. So in this session, we're going to give you the opportunity to experience steps 2 and 3. For the sake of time, we're going to do a little bit more talking through step 4, even though I will say that step 4, when you do this with your students or your learners, is probably the most critical step. So for this process, we do have a document that we want to share with you. And when you go and click on that document, I believe it's going to request you to make a copy. And it's going to look like this. This comes right from the Right Question Institute. This is Their resources are right there on their website and available for anyone to use. And I just want to point that out, that this is not a document that we created, but something that we are using from them, because it's very important when you use something from someone that you give them that credit. And so what you're going to be doing today, we're going to start with step 2. You're going to produce some questions. Why is this step so important? Well, in the title of his book called Make Just One Change, the idea is that the students are going to ask the questions. So many times it is the teacher that asks the question and the students that come up with an answer. So before beginning, we want our students to ask questions, and we want to do this in a way that begins with brainstorming. So there are rules or protocols around asking questions, and you can see them on the screen there. And as you make a copy of your document, you can see them on the document as well. Number 1, ask as many questions as you can. That sounds simple, but it is actually a little bit more challenging. Once again, I think that's why this process is so intriguing to me, because it seems so simple and yet really does kind of shift the way we think about how our students begin to think about things. I know probably the hardest one for me is number 2, do not stop, discuss, or judge answers to questions. You know, just this is a brainstorming time, and we always say that, but this is truly brainstorming. Just continue to write the questions. Write down every question exactly as you think of it. And that would be important for your students so that they have that authentic voice there. This is not the time to go back and fix pronunciation or punctuation, or just write the question down. What are your ideas? What are those students really thinking? And please make sure that they're questions. If you write a statement, go back and turn that into a question. So this would be what would be presented to the students first. Now, one thing I love about this form is the first thing that it asks you is what might be difficult about following this rule. And so that might be a really nice place for your students to start kind of doing some self-evaluation, some self-assessment about what they might find a challenge for this. Now, this is something that students can do on their own, but I think it is much better to do it in a group. I think this works much better in a small group format, although I know that in this past year, there have been processes set up using this technique where the student would do it asynchronously. But even in that situation, students were encouraged to perhaps grab a family member to kind of go through this process. So we are going to ask you to do that, to ask the questions. And then just for sake of time, we don't want to keep bringing you back and forth out of breakout rooms. And so the second thing that we're going to have you do is step 3, where you categorize those questions as closed or open-ended. One is not better than the other. They both just serve a different purpose. So for our purposes today, a closed-ended question is answered with a yes or a no, or one word, meaning, you know, we can close that with just a word. And open-ended would require a longer explanation. And so what we'd like you to do is go through step 2 for about, we're gonna put you in breakout rooms for about, let's say 8 minutes. I think 8 minutes would be a good amount of time. And for about the first 5, generate questions. And then for the last 3, we're gonna go ahead and improve or change your questions from one to the other. So you will want to pick somebody who is willing to be the recorder in your group, perhaps somebody who's made a copy of this document and has it available and ready to go. So once again, for the first 5 minutes, you're going to want to go ahead and ask all the questions, come up with all the questions that you can. And then in the next part, go ahead and turn them into open or closed. And we can send a message to you. We will send a message to you at about 3 minutes telling you when that would be a good time to change over. So are there any questions or need for clarification around that before we begin?
And Pam, I'm creating the breakout rooms right now. Do you think 6 would be a good amount?
Yes. And thank you for your questions. And yes, you are going to be asking questions around the phenomena that Kristen shared with you. That's where that is our question focus. And you will see that link to the video has been embedded in your sheet. And so that's where you will want to, that's what the questions are about. And thank you for asking that in the chat there.
So they're going to go into breakout rooms. They're going to open up this sheet, watch the video, and then create questions. And they'll have one person that'll be the recorder that will then
Yes,
come back and present some of their questions, correct?
we're not going to probably have time for the presentation part,
Okay.
and that's fine. They're going to create their questions, and then they're going to, when there's about 3 minutes left in the breakout room, they're going to look at those questions and label them open to closed, and then turn one open question into a closed question and vice versa.
Perfect. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and open those breakout rooms right now. And it's going to just assign you guys to a breakout room automatically. Hey guys, quick question. Is there a timer on the breakout rooms?
If you are, I don't think so. If you are keeping the time,
I am.
let's just say it's been 1 minute. Like
Yep.
at 5 minutes, if you could just send them a message that says
Sure.
time to move on to the questions.
Yep.
That's how I've seen it done. I don't think they have I know that when you close the breakout rooms, they have 60 seconds to come out?
Yeah, 60 seconds.
So
I just wasn't sure. I've been in some breakout rooms where they had a timer, but I didn't know. I don't see one on my end.
mhm.
So after 5 minutes, guys, I send them a notice, correct?
Yes.
All right, guys, I'm sending the 1 minute notice.
I'm really liking how my purple is clashing with the blue and orange, but I really like the sweater.
So I can kind of blend in with the blue and orange.
It works. It works for you. Yeah.
It is what it is. They should all be coming back in about 20 seconds.
We saw your little prompts, Michelle. We said, "Oop, time to follow the rules."
Yeah, oh, good. I'm glad. Glad they worked well. Okay, everyone should be back.
Okay, so hopefully that, I know that was very quick. Hopefully that gave you just kind of a little taste of that. So once again, step one, starting with that question focus. Step two, generating your questions. Step three, prioritizing those, or excuse me, kind of improving upon those questions, looking at closed versus open-ended questions. And that brings us to step four, which is strategize. And this next piece is actually my favorite, and that is to prioritize your questions. Choose the 3 most important questions. And this is where you truly begin to have your students have those really deep conversations as they defend their choice for question. Which are the 3 most important questions that they want to focus on? This is really where they can begin to take ownership, going from that experience to really choosing something that they want to focus on. From there, they would develop an action plan, and that could be many things. That could be an individual research project. That could be you as the teacher taking some of those key questions and forming a driving question board. There really is no limit to how you can use those questions that the students have them generated. And then how would the students share? What would they do? What is that ultimate goal going to be at the end? So unfortunately, although I feel like those, especially that prioritize your questions is such a key piece, we're going to just keep on going. Which brings us to step 5, which is that final piece, that reflection. After each and every project, we want to make sure that students have an opportunity to reflect on that. And there are different ways that the students can do that. This is something that we have used in the past and found just really at least it just speaks to me in terms of having the students reflect. And the first is that they've been heard and understood. Can each and every participant say that they've been heard and understood, meaning that they've had an opportunity to speak? Have they heard and understood, meaning they've also had an opportunity to listen? And they can live with it. They've had that, respectful discourse, whether with an agreement or disagreement, but they can live with it. And would they be able to support that publicly? So whereas this is not necessarily the only way you could use to reflect on that, this is certainly one piece.
And that just brings us back to the process that we use today. So really to get us to that final part of our journey, we do want to encompass these 3 things. So you want to think about, what is the reason for our talk? What is the reason for that meaningful discussion or that student voice that we really want our students to be having in our classroom? And you guys can start, kind of brainstorming and thinking about the purpose of having that incorporated. And then once you decide on that purpose, your next step would be to bring in a protocol. What is a protocol that's going to make this equitable in my classroom? How am I going to be able to see my students all participate in this one action, and then make sure that they're making meaning of it through that visible thinking, either routine or strategy that you may be incorporating along the way. So those are the 3 major things that we want to really be focusing on when we're trying to pull in more of that meaningful talk to encourage those student voices in our schools. In case, Pam and I do know that there's a ton of resources out there to help with these various pieces. So we did go through the next slide here and pull together a Padlet resource for all of you. So really, once you decide on what that purpose or that reason is for talk, we found some various protocols, bounce cards, those talk moves, talk strategies, anything that you can think about that could support you in that area. And I believe Pam's going to add the Padlet link to the chat box. So if you head over to the chat box, you can click on the Padlet and we can just give you a quick overview of what to expect. So we did add the National School Reform Protocols. They have some amazing free protocols that you can search for. There's the Harvard. Harvard has a visible thinking toolbox, routine toolbox that they've created, Project Zero. These are all free resources as well. So if you're looking for a way to bring more of that student thinking, being able to see what's happening. And then of course you can see that there are some talk moves in there. Pam also incorporated your QFT strategies. So if you like something you see, all you need to do is hover over it and it'll either send you to the webpage or you can visualize what it is, you can enlarge it, and then you can download it if it's something that you feel could be useful for you. So the whole idea behind this was to really incorporate the idea of purpose, protocol, and then thinking, visible thinking. So we wanted to make sure you guys had some tools to help you get started.
And we liked this idea a little bit more than a shared folder because you got to see all the resources right there and kind of at a glance kind of get a view of what you would be looking at and then just picking and choosing. And this will be up. This is not something that will close. So if you can keep that link handy, you'll be able to have access to this pretty much at any time until, I don't know, we won't say the end of time. That's too dramatic. So
yeah, just star it or keep it in your browser and bookmark it, star it, and it's yours. We won't be disabling it anytime soon. So grab what you need. Absolutely. All right. So let us know if you have any questions about the resource page. Throw them in the chat. We can field those for you. So we just have a couple more ideas, and then we're gonna wish you guys well. We just wanted to touch base. We know that right now, this is a super popular process being used across the country. So we're hearing this more and more in the schools and the teachers that we work with. So if you're not familiar with argument-driven inquiry, there's an 8-step process that really incorporates best practice writing, reading, and talk in your classroom. And it's not just for science, it can be used across any subject matter. So we just wanted to kind of highlight some of the main steps within that process that would really be a great fit to be able to incorporate more science talk opportunities, really get a sense for student voice and being able to use that process. If you're familiar with ADI and you use it, those would be the 4 pieces or the 4 places in which we felt would lend themselves most to the process. And then for those of you who are from the NGSS world, you may be working or have been working on or mastering the integration of these science and engineering processes. What we did here is I just listed out all 8 processes or the science and engineering practices here. And I highlighted all 8 of them because with the appropriate protocols, so if you find the appropriate protocol, science talk and getting student voice can occur anywhere within the science and engineering practices. We can do that every step along the way. It's all about just finding the right tools to really make it meaningful. So that's the big goal. And that was kind of our goal for today, was to help you kind of sort through the process and be able to pull out some tools or think about which tools might help you achieve some of those goals. Okay. Wow, Julie, that's amazing. So that's pretty much comes to the end where we saw this continuum when we started, and we're going to end with the continuum because we're kind of thinking we took this little mission or this little journey, and we want you guys to take a moment. So just take a brief moment, consider where you placed your marker when we started, and there we had, it was so diverse here where some of you are started, where some of you have already headed. And my question for you is, or a series of questions I have for you, look at where you are, right? And think about, where do you want to be? So where are you and where do you want to be? Even if you're all the way there at the top, what can you do to make it even more effective or to reach more students? So just think about where you are and think about where you want to go. So I'm going to give you a second to look at the continuum and kind of consider that. All right. And then my next question is to start thinking about the little steps. You know, we don't have to do anything big to begin with, but the little steps that you're going to take to start working towards that next goal. So what are the little pieces that you're going to start looking for or pulling together just to get you to either, you know, the next best part in the place where you are, or maybe moving forward ahead of where you are. So just that's the big goal, is to kind of take a look where you are and just start thinking about, how do I move forward here? And how do I get my students to move forward? Okay. All right, I'm going to give you guys just that reflection time. And then I also want to say, this is what Pam and I have for you today. And I want to thank you for your amazing participation. Your Jamboard is incredible. And just thank you for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. And just thank you for being, you know, the best teachers that you are. So we do appreciate your time.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we saw from that first continuum that we're all in different places, and that's okay. We just want to you know, as educators, as teachers, we want to just continue to improve ourselves. We're not in competition with anyone. It's just about improving ourselves and therefore improving the experience for our students. So wherever you find yourself, a journey always begins with the first step. And so we hope that this has helped you just in taking a first step or your next step. And just once again, I do want to say thank you so much for hanging on a Saturday afternoon. And yeah, there we go. Back to you, Michelle.
All right, I'm on. So I see a lot of thank yous and great jobs with the tech integration and active participation tools. So great job, Kristen and Pam. That was an excellent session. You shared many insights with us today, and I especially like the resources that you shared with everyone on Science Talk Moves. So those are awesome resources to help teachers guide them with those student talk scenarios and the process. So easy, right? Purpose, protocol, visible thinking. So just thinking through that process, you guys did an amazing job. Thank you again for sharing your talents and your expertise with us today. Participants, to follow up, we will now post a quick 5-question survey about this session in the chat window. Do you guys want me to put the link in there? I can do that.
I can get it for you.
Okay. And then please take 30 seconds to complete the survey. And when you do, you'll be entered to win a $15 Amazon gift card. We will choose 2 winners from each session. So make sure to click the link in the chat and provide your feedback. On Monday, we will send you a certificate of attendance if you complete the survey, as well as information about your free STEM certification course. So Kristen just went ahead and put the link in the chat. So please use that link to take that survey so you could be entered into that $15 Amazon gift card raffle, as well as receive your certificate of attendance and a free STEM certification course. So thank you everyone for joining us today, especially on a Saturday afternoon, right? That was outstanding. We had very large attendance and you guys were a great audience. And Kristen and Pam, thank you again for sharing your expertise with us today.
Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know about Heather's question, Michelle?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have her email Ken.
What's the email address for him?
I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Okay. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And then I'm gonna take a look at
The link that I shared with you guys, it's about teaching climate change using graphs, but it also guides teachers on how to encourage student engagement through talk and participation. So I figured you guys might like that. So
Yeah,
but thank you.
That's awesome.
you.
Thank you for sharing.
Have a great day.
You can add it to that.
You too.
Ashley, thank you.
Yeah.
And
We're
everyone.
done after this, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
This was the
Thank
last
you.
one for today.
All right. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Enjoy your Saturday.